Welcome, distinguished speakers, guests, and friends. Namaste, Assalamu alaikum, and warm greetings to all of you. I am Ashley Sananan of Trinidad and Tobago, a graduate of the University of the West Indies with a major in history and a minor in literature, and an independent researcher. This is the 319th edition of our ICC Thought Leaders Forum, supported by Dr. Sabini Roy of England and Dr. Omar C. Bullock of Mauritius. We wish to sincerely thank all of you who have graciously contributed to the success of this ongoing Pan-Indo-Caribbean and Pan-Indo-Indian Diaspora Global Project. For 318 unbroken continuous weeks, we have been here every single Sunday. In the past 5 years, 9 months, and 1 week, we have featured 1,268 presenters speaking on 380 topics. We are pleased to have speakers and participants in this meeting from all parts of the world in different time zones. In order to continue this weekly program, we are asking for suggestions and volunteers. If you choose to give a donation, Dr. Mahabir should be contacted to provide details and will ensure your name will be placed on our poster and all promotional materials. This weekly forum is being hosted by the Indo-Caribbean Cultural Center, a legally registered research and publishing company operating since 2010. Ladies and gentlemen, today I am pleased to introduce our moderator, who is Shalima Mohammed. She is the co-director of the ICC Zoom platform. She is a cultural and heritage consultant, business psychologist, teacher, and researcher from right here in Trinidad and Tobago. Shalima, welcome.
Thanks very much, Ashley. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Namaste. Welcome to today's virtual panel and community discussion on the Zoom platform. A special hello to those of you viewing the live stream on the YouTube channel of the Indo-Caribbean Cultural Center. I want to say thanks so much for choosing to be here with us. Today, we will explore a monumental piece of our shared history and ancestry. The UNESCO-backed International Indentured Labor Route Project is a vital global initiative. Launched by Mauritius, it documents the migration of 2.2 million indentured laborers. As descendants, this project directly uncovers the history of our resilient ancestors. It explores the profound cultural, social, and economic impacts on modern global societies. Through scientific research, it reconstructs the complex recruitment and plantation systems. By preserving tangible heritage sites like Aprivasi Ghat, it safeguards physical ancestral roots. The project honors the memory of the Gomitias to foster international reconciliation. So please turn off your audio and cameras. Kindly use the chat feature to share your family's country of origin. And later, we'll ask you to actively participate in the upcoming Q&A session. We want to keep this legacy alive. Having said that, it's my pleasure to welcome our very first speaker. And this is Satyendra Pirtham, our brother who is of Mauritian and Guyanese parentage. He's an historian, writer, and lecturer. He's also a member of the International Scientific Committee and the Secretariat of the International Indentured Labor Route Project. Welcome, Sat. Go ahead with your presentation.
Very much. Namaste. So, good afternoon, good evening, good morning to everyone. So, my paper, it covers on the overview of the history of the ILRP. Basically, I think you have to go a bit further, Shaliba. Yeah, a bit further. Yeah. So, indentured migration is a major milestone in the history of the modern world, especially the Indian Ocean world and the wider European colonial plantation world during the 19th and 20th centuries. The indentured labor route, the indentured labor system was set up in the aftermath of the Great Experiment by the British. It was established with the specific objective of demonstrating the superiority of the free labor over slave labor. This is what we had put in our Pravasigat dossier. I see Richard is online. He knows that because he worked with us. Howdy to everyone as well who is following this. So this labor system was the genesis of a new economic world order, which existed for almost a century. The Pravasigat is the tangible symbol of this emergence of this new labor system in modern world history. So the historical importance of the labor diaspora in the Indian Ocean world is that it was the largest movement of population in this part of the world during the 19th and 20th century, even more significant than the slavery, okay, as per our current research. The Pravasigat is significant because it welcomed the largest number of indentured migrants, and from 1826 to 1910, it allowed almost 500,000 or 462,000, sorry, the error on the number, 462,800 indentured men, women, and children, Indians and non-Indians, okay? Furthermore, Mauritius was the first country to introduce indentured laborers en masse, and Pravasigat was the first depot where indentured laborers were processed, registered, and 2/3 of them remained in Mauritius. And we must remember, it was not only Indians, but also there were thousands of Malagasi's, Comorian, East Africans, liberated Africans, and Chinese contractual laborers who were brought to Mauritian shores and contributed in the making of this multicultural society. Next, please. So when we talk about indentured labor, we talk about the Great Experiment. We have to remember, given that it was successful in Mauritius, it was expanded during the 1840s. We know in Guyana, it was almost on the same time where the indentured workers, Indians and non-Indians, were imported, especially those from the Caribbean also. Trinidad, Fiji, Jamaica, and South Africa. It was replicated elsewhere. As per our current scholarship, we estimate around 5.2 million indentured laborers left India, Southeast Asia, China, Africa, Java, and Melanesia, and were taken to different parts of the former European colonial plantation world. Next, please. So the concept of the indentured labor route project started in Mauritius in 2001, and it was at the Mahatma Gandhi Institute under the coolie route. I remember this clearly because I was a technical officer at the National Heritage Fund. There was a committee that was set up at the Mahatma Gandhi where they wanted to set up an international scientific committee to undertake the setting up of this coolie route. And a bit later on, the term indentured labor route would be formularized. The elaboration of this concept was given new impetus when the Pravasigat Trust Fund was created in 2001, and the institution was established in 2002. In January 2004, AGTF received an official letter from the Ministry of Arts and Culture, which authorized the institution to take necessary measures to set up the ILRP. Shortly afterwards, the board set up a subcommittee to look into into the setting up of the indentured labor route project. In May 2005, in its response to the ICOMOS evaluation report, AGTF had already mentioned its intention for this forthcoming museum and research projects to set up the indentured labor route project. There was Kal Turabali, there was Dr. Tilak, my own father, Dr. Pietam, Richard was with us, and so many other scholars. So a massive effort was made in order to prepare the nomination dossier and to study indenture in Mauritius and in other parts of the where it took place. So basically what Pravasigat was inscribed, the recommendation of UNESCO was to investigate not only indentured labor in Mauritius and the Indian Ocean world, but also beyond in other parts where it existed, like in the Caribbean, South Africa, and the Pacific, and Australia and elsewhere. Next slide, please. So the concept of the indentured labor route was discussed in 2001. There was this workshop in 2001 at the MGI called Coolie Route, Crossing the Seven Seas, and it was initiated. I won't go further into it, I already mentioned. And basically, it got underway. So we are marking also 25 years that it has existed, 2001, 2026. Next slide, please. So basically what happened is that on 16th of July, 2006, which in a few days' time will be commemorating 20 years already since Pravasigat was inscribed. It was the first World Heritage Site in Mauritius, the only indenture site out of the more than 1,300 indentured the World Heritage Sites in the world. It is the only one, as far as we know, that has been inscribed. And basically, they said when we are talking about the UNESCO mentioning Pravasigat as the first site chosen by the British government in 1934 for the Great Experiment in the use of indentured rather than slave labor, is strongly associated with the memories of almost 500,000 indentured laborers moving from India to Mauritius to work on the sugarcane plantations and or to be transshipped to other parts of the world. This is from Vilnius, Lithuania, when the Apravasigat was inscribed 20 years ago. Next, please. So basically, it also recommended that the indentured immigration archives be inscribed on the UNESCO Memory of the World Register, which was initiated in 2012, and in 2015, the records, just like of other countries such as Suriname, South Africa, Fiji, Trinidad, and I think Guyana as well, was inscribed on the Memory of the World Register. And basically, the World Heritage Committee also called on Apravasigat to have other aspects of indentured labor, such as the Geet Gawai or the traditional Bhojpuri wedding songs, was also inscribed shortly afterwards. So in 2011, 2014, we had conferences. Apravasigat has conferences, publications, its annual magazine, to further research on indentured labor. So it was all this part of an effort to enhance our understanding of indentured labor. And in 2011 and 2014, the ILRP was discussed as a concept, as an idea. Next, please. So in 2011, we had the great conference, New Perspectives on Indentured Labor, 1825-1925, where resolutions were enacted. Mr. Chuni knows it. He's a relative of mine. He was minister during then, where we called for the creation for the International Committee for the ILRP, creation of an Indentured Labor Global Database, the ILGDI, and also shortly after, from 3rd to 5th November 2014, a second conference. Shortly after that, the ILRP was adopted, we had towards the establishment of International Indentured Labor Route. I remember that Kumar Mahabir came to our 2011 conference. And so these are what we had: 30 scholars in Mauritius, 75 delegates who attended the conference. The idea was to pave the way for the ILRP. Next one, please. So by the end of the conference, these were some of the ideas that were adopted, set up of the term of reference for the International Scientific Committee, different projects, what was going to, such as the database, set up a body of scholars it was multidisciplinary: history, anthropology, archaeology, ethnography, and heritage, which some of it we have done already. We have friends, scholars who took part in our more recent conference. There was a regular monitoring of the action plan. And in 2014, UNESCO took note of the progress of work which was being done. Next slide, please. So basically, the ILRP itself, the idea was to have scholars from different countries working together, have different projects, have different ideas. And in 2017, in fact, it was we had Moritz was there, Brijlal was there, and Vijaya was there. We had an international conference / workshop where it was the first ILRP International Scientific Committee, where we had representatives from Mauritius, India, France, Réunion Island, Australia, Malaysia, Suriname, South Africa, Trinidad, etc., where they met in Mauritius to set up the framework for the ILRP. And this was the first major step to concretize what UNESCO had recommended and what the government of Mauritius, together with other partners, tried to establish. Next one, please. And AGTF, of course, being the secretariat. So I won't go too much into details. The idea was basically to get Mauritius, which spearheaded the idea. In fact, what happened is that in October 2014, there was a delegation, a high-power delegation, which went to UNESCO, together with Minister Chuni, Professor Parsuraman, and others, Mahenu Chana, who was president of Gopi International, a strong delegation, and they lobbied UNESCO to have ILRP accepted based on the model of a bit, in quotation marks, of the Slave Route Project to a certain extent, and Mauritius to be the secretariat, specifically the Apravasigat Trust Fund under the Ministry of Arts and Culture. So basically, next slide, please. So in 2021, I will stop at 2022. I'll let Mr. Chuni and Moritz, my good friend Moritz, to fill in the blanks. In July 2021, we had a interministerial committee meeting of the ILRP, where we had representatives from UNESCO, different governments, ministers speaking. Moritz was involved in it, I was involved in it, and there was almost 14 countries which were involved. They were online. Richard also participated, if I remember correctly. The idea was basically to launch the ILRP, to give it a new lease on life, to put it on the rails, to get it to move forward. And basically, the idea was to have a database, to have this network again to be solidified. The idea was to get scholars on board, and the idea was to get UNESCO support as well, the Republic of Mauritius, and other countries as well to support the ILRP. Next slide, please. So basically, with the ILRP, we had a more recent international conference and workshop. I won't go into details into that. But in 2021 and 2022, we also had different chapters. Indian Ocean. I was the secretary of the Indian Ocean Committee. We had 2 workshops, and we had also the Pacific Committee and the Caribbean Committee. And basically, we had scholars. We had more than, in 2 different international webinars, we had more than 50 papers being presented, different themes. It was very constructive. And basically, it moved the process forward. And of course, as you all know, more recently, Moritz, Fauzana, and Radhika, they were in Mauritius for the international conference, thanks largely to the effort of Mr. Bandan, the chairman, the director of the Apravasikat, and the chairman of the Apravasikat HTF, and of course the ministry, where we had this international conference and the workshop. So this idea is to show that there is a commitment from Mauritius and its partners to establish the ILRP, to make it happen. It was a successful conference and workshop. I won't go further into that. I'll allow this to Moritz or to talk about it as the former chairman. Vijaya also is former chairperson. So the idea is to bring scholars together, to have a platform where they can discuss the ideas, but it's not only Indian indentured labor. It is the Girmitias, they were the bulk, but also the Chinese and the other Africans, the other non-Indians, because this is UNESCO. We have to remember it is a World Heritage Site, global implication. It has to include all those people who are indentured, Indians and non-Indians, in this whole process. So I will end my presentation there to allow others to speak. Thank you very much, Shalima, for the generous introduction and for inviting me, and also to Kumar Mahadir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sad. Always extraordinarily informative and such reliable information. We know that your facts are always clear, and we really appreciate that. Thank you so much. We're going to ask members of the audience to please hold your questions until all the presentations, because as Sat was speaking, you will realize that he was leaving space for the other 2 speakers to fill in some blanks. So what we'll do right now is move on to the Honorable Mukeshwar Chuni, who is from Mauritius. And Sat would have spoken about him. As the Minister of Arts and Culture during the period 2010 to 2014, he played a key role in supporting Mauritius' proposal to UNESCO for the establishment of the International Indentured Labour Route Project. Today is his birthday, and so we say a very happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday,
For that
Mukeshwar.
reason,
Thank you.
there's a celebration going on where he is at the moment, and so he has kindly prepared a pre-recorded video. So we'll share that with you now.
Namaskar. I would first of all like to thank Dr. Mahamir and Mrs. Shalima for having identified me and for giving me the opportunity to talk on the Indentured Labour Route Project. As most of you may be aware, the Indentured Labour Route Project is a global initiative spearheaded by Mauritius and endorsed by UNESCO during my tenure of office as Minister of Arts and Culture. Actually, those days, the Apravasikat Trust Fund and the National Heritage Trust Fund were included in my portfolio. There are 3 reasons specific that inspired me to pursue the indentured labor route project. First, my personal connections, because I am the fourth generation descendant of indentured laborers, the Girmitias in Mauritius. My great-grandfather arrived at Aprawasi Ghat in 1875 at a tender age of 5 from Ara in Bihar. I'll leave these details for another webinar at a later stage. Second, my diplomatic engagements. I served in India as Ambassador High Commissioner for almost 5 years, and during my tenure, I visited UP, Bihar, and of course Kolkata, including the depots where indentured laborers transited before departing from the port of Kolkata to unknown destinations. Friends, the third and most important reason for my pursuing the Indentured Labor Route project was the intellectual guidance. Actually, I had a lot of meetings and discussions with late Professor Brijlal of Fiji during his visits in Mauritius in 2011 and 2014. According to me, he is the most respected intellectual of the Pacific, representing the memory and the moral conscience of the Indo-Fijians. He was among the first to unearth the dignity, the struggle, and the resilience of the Girmitias. At the Ministry of Arts and Culture in Port Louis, we researched indenture extensively and prepared a comprehensive dossier to complement UNESCO's Slave Route project. With the blessings of Government of Mauritius and my Prime Minister, I led a delegation to meet UNESCO Director General, then Mrs. Irina Bokova, at UNESCO headquarters in Paris. I made my case that this route is as significant as the slave route. And she observed that, it is not widely known. I explained that this was precisely the reason for me to come from Mauritius with my delegation. I stressed that the route concerns an estimated 2.2 million indentured laborers, mainly from India, some from China, and some from other countries. And it traces the cultural legacies and history as those people were moved across the world between the 19th and 20th centuries by the British colonizers. Indentured laborers suffered the same conditions similar to slavery. They travel in the same sailing ships, in crowded and unhygienic conditions, with infected water, infected drinking water. Many died during the long journey. And you know what? They were thrown at sea. To protect, to prevent infection, to protect the others who were in the ship, even some were thrown alive when they were infected into the sea. Mrs. Bokova listened to me with great attention and interest and agreed that the indenture deserves the right place in the history of mankind and should be endorsed by UNESCO. And this was done later. For practical reasons, some conditions were attached. Number one, that UNESCO's experiment and UNESCO's experience would guide the implementation. Number two, a scientific committee would be established to facilitate academic research on indenture, labor systems, intergenerational trauma, and the resilience of the diaspora. Third, the project would support preservation of historical transit sites, archives, and original histories. Fourth, it would promote global networking by uniting scholars, international institutions, and member states through conferences and databases to advance cultural dialogue and sustainability. She also noted that UNESCO did not have the funds or manpower to sustain the project. So immediately then I proposed that with UNESCO's support and that of India, the project could be based at the Pravasi Ghat in Mauritius. As you are aware, the Pravasi Ghat is the best preserved site for indenture in the world, with more than 500,000 people having transited its steps. The Mahatma Gandhi Institute archives in Mauritius is recognized by UNESCO as Intangible World Heritage, and it holds comprehensive records and data on indenture. Of course, to satisfy these conditions, we had some challenges as well. What are the challenges ahead? We need, number one, significant research has to be undertaken through scientific committee, though they are doing well, but we still have to do a lot. Second, historical transit sites. Most of them are not easily identifiable. So historical transit sites should be marked by respective nations, almost 30 of them, with at least a monument or a pole indicating the arrival of the indentured laborers. Third, the monument at Calcutta and the Bhawanipur depot should be considered for inclusion on UNESCO World Heritage List for Humanity. Friends, in conclusion, the governments of Mauritius and India deserve congratulations for their laudable initiatives. There are some other governments also that should be congratulated because they have identified the Indian arrival day, and in most of those countries where the dates have been identified, the Indian arrival day is a public holiday. So similarly, Mauritius has to be congratulated first for implementation of the project with the secretariat based at the Pravasi Ghat, and of course declaring a Pravasi Divas, that is the Indian Arrival Day, on the 2nd November as a public holiday. A grand celebration is held every year there with guests from India. India has to be congratulated again for 3 reasons. One, for initiating a database on indenture as proposed by Prime Minister Modi ji. Second, by introducing the OCI card instead of the PIU card, the Overseas Indian Citizens of India card instead of the People of Indian Origin card, for different generations of Gilmitia descendants. And third, for organizing PBD, the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, every 2 years to encourage interaction and networking between the Indian diaspora, including the indentured laborers' descendants and India. But for all this to succeed, for the Indian indentured labor route project to get widespread global acclaim and acknowledged by the existing countries, a high-profile driver, whether it's a Mauritian or an Indian to start with, is badly needed to steer the project with the support of both governments. This is essential to do justice to approximately 18 million descendants of indentured laborers scattered worldwide in recognition of their contribution in their adopted countries and in order to cherish and pass on the spirit of Indianness, culture, values, and traditions to their descendants. I wish that this happens because wherever they have been, the indentured laborers and their descendants, their contribution has been enormous to every society and in the promotion of world peace. So I do hope that they will not be assimilated or integrated and become similar to the mainstream culture of the countries where they have settled, because we need to safeguard our identity and strengthen our roots. Thank you for this opportunity being given to me. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chuni, I want to say thank you very much for having been so inspired to play the role that you have in the establishment of this very important project in your home country. Thank you very much for all that you've done over the years as well in ensuring that it has gotten to the point that it is at today. And most importantly, thank you very much for being here even on your birthday. Having said that, we'd like to dedicate a very brief tribute to you. And I think Shakira has something for you. Shakira? Thank you very much, Shakir. And Mr. Chuni, as you are here with us, would you like to respond?
Thank you. Thank you very much. You can hear me. You can see me also, no? I
We're
don't know.
hearing you, yes.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you.
You have to turn
Thank
on
you
your
very much.
camera. We can't see you.
Oh, you can't see me. Wait a minute. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
now
good now.
better?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Dr. Kumar. Thank you, Shalimaji. Thank you, Shakira, for having wished me with the beautiful music, confirming that, yes, I'm getting older now. Anyway, thank you. Thank you very much. I do hope I served the purpose for which I was meant to serve, to help you understand our involvement, especially the involvement of Mauritius in all that happened as far as the indentured labor route is concerned. So we wish we succeed in everything that we undertake. And I have to congratulate all of you, the Indo-Caribbean Cultural Center, for having taken such an initiative. You are doing great work. It's the 319th episode. I have participated earlier also. It's great work to keep our cause alive. So thank you. And if there is any question and all, I'll come over later. I'll be attending the whole session. Forget the birthday.
Excellent.
Children are celebrating. I'm here with you, and I'll wish to collaborate and be with you up to the end of the program. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being here.
Yeah.
You know, our efforts are, very small in comparison. All of us need to put in a small amount wherever we can, and we hope to be able to follow in your footsteps and do something as great as the Indentured Labor Route Project. So it's our pleasure to support. And of course, it's so important that we highlight this very important work that you all are doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So at this point in time, let me bring on Dr. Moritz Hassan Khan, who is from our neighboring Suriname. And of course, he is no stranger, just like Sat and Mr. Chuni. He's the former president of the International Scientific Committee of the International Indentured Labor Route Project. He has contributed significantly to research on the history of Indians who are referred to as Hindustanis in Suriname. Welcome, Dr. Hassan Khan. You're muted. You need to unmute your mic, please.
Unmute, and Shaki has to show his PowerPoint.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
do you hear me
Good.
now?
Yes, we
Yes.
can hear you now.
First of all, I would like to congratulate Dr. Chuni with his birthday. And I hope you will live very long and have a good health. Okay, as Satendra said, that the history of Indentured Labor Route Project goes on till about 2001. My own involvement in the international database project is since about 2010. But in Suriname, we started with a database already in 1998. So that is a long story, but that was on national level. And since 2010-11, there have been two conferences, one in Trinidad organized by UV and the Indian High Commission, and I presented there a paper about why we should have an international database. And in the same year, we had also a conference in Mauritius, where the main topic was also the need for an international database with a few panel discussions about that. And it took, as Satyendra and Dr. Chuni said, until October 2014, when the UNESCO took the decision to approve the establishment of the international database, for which Mauritius had the lead, the initiative. And from the beginning, we had a very big challenge because the UNESCO approved the establishment of the project, but they said they don't have funding. So the initiators has to try to find funding for this very important and useful project, because the Endangered Labor Route Project has the ambition to do a lot of research and preserve also the heritage of indentured labor and migration, etc. And the idea was not only to have a project in Mauritius, but in the whole world, with participation of all the countries where indentured labor was sent during the 19th and the beginning of the 20th century. The formal establishment of the International Scientific Committee took place at the end of October, the last days of October 2017, and I think 2 days in 2018. So the official launching, you can say, of the international database and also IRRP took place at that conference in 2017. And the decision was taken that an international scientific committee will have the lead, but at the same time, in the report of the meeting, we have that in every country, every participating country, we should have a national committee of the Indentured Labor Route Project. And I think there are very few countries, maybe Mauritius is the only one, where you have really a national committee, Indentured Labor Committee. In Suriname, we have not been able to establish it formally yet. One of the biggest problems and challenges for this project is the not availability of enough funding, because if you want to do research, if you want to make an international database, that is very important. That is from the beginning one of the highest priorities for the Indentured Labor Route Project, that is the International Indentured Labor Database, in which in that database that we assume that every country will make their own national database, in which you at least have the information, a database of all indentured laborers who came to those countries. That is first. And to make that database will take a lot of time and a lot of money. And the problem is, as UNESCO said from the beginning, they don't have funding. The initiators, the participants has to look for funding. And that has been also a kind of, maybe I can say that it's disappointment, but scholars who were enthusiastic in the beginning, who wanted to participate, they came with ideas about research and about projects for the Indentured Labor Route Project, because we formulated in the first time we had a 3 years plan of action. But in the plan of action, we had a lot of suggestions, research projects, and the working on the database of all the countries. But for the database, really you need money. And people asked for money about it, but the ISC, International Scientific Committee, did not have money about it. And it is too heavy for a country like Mauritius. That is my conclusion. I've presented that different times within our meetings, that we have to look for involvement of more countries, and especially also the former colonial states, the former colonial empires as UK, the Netherlands, and France. France has participated from the beginning, but that is because a few countries are still departments of France. That's why they participating. But we have not seen an active participation and doing research in that field. So that is a problem about which we have to talk if we really want to initiate projects. Second thing is, and maybe I am giving a story that is not very to be enthusiastic. That is because of the experience I have seen since I am very active in this field since the 2017, because for me it's also the international database the first priority. And one of the things is that Mauritius, as the country with the largest number of indentured laborers, that there we did not have the database yet, not the national database. I'm glad to say that the situation has changed. Mauritius is now working very hard on creating their own national database that is for about, I think, 450,000 people. That is the largest one. And I hope that very short after this meeting that we will be able to, that Mauritius will be able to launch the database of Mauritius. And there has been also a situation that there was some, I don't know how you say in English, but people said that there are from the government side or politicians, they don't want that the caste of the indentured laborer should be mentioned or should be accessible for everybody. And that is, we have to find a solution. Within the ISC, we have decided that if there are problems about caste, that not everybody should know about the caste of the laborers, then that will be only for genealogical reasons, that only descendants can have it. But for scholars, is unconditionally, scholars should have access to all the data, because these are old material. And I don't know what is written in the archives law of Mauritius about records, historical records in the archive. So I think it is very important, and I don't hope that that will be a problem. Otherwise, other countries will make also problems that they will not make available their own database. Until now, we have three databases of three countries. The first one, I think it was South Africa. Suriname has its own database, and then we have the database of Fiji, but that was made by Professor Bridlal for his PhD thesis. I don't know of whether all the indentured laborers are included. I'm saying that because the research of Professor Bridlal for his PhD thesis was only on the UP, on the Bhojpuri region, North Indian indentured labor. So we have to check that. I'm not sure about it, but anyway, that is already available. This is public accessible, because it was on microfilm and it was put in the National Australian National University in their library. That is for everybody accessible. And the South African database is also accessible. People can use it. And I have personally seen the usefulness, the profit you can have to use it, because my own grandmother from father's side, according to oral sources, my grandmother was born in South Africa. But in our records, it is not written that she is born in South Africa. It's in India. And I had heard from an aunt, my father's sister, oldest father's sister, has told us that her mother, that's my grandmother, was born in South Africa. And because South Africa has its database online, I sent a email for Ghulam Wahid, my friend and historian Ghulam Wahid from Natal, and within one day he sent me the information in which year my grandmother's mother went to South Africa for her indentured labor, and so I found that in which year her mother and father went to South Africa. So I have some links with South Africa. I know I have done research on indentured laborers for the database also, that I know at least two persons who have worked, their father has worked in Fiji. And so from Fiji, they went back to India and came to Suriname. So you had a kind of twice migration. People who had finished their contract in the colony, it can be in Mauritius or Guyana, Suriname, after they had the right on free passage. In Suriname, it was after 5 years, but in the British colonies that you had a residential duty of 10 years. After 10 years, you could get a free passage back, and they went back. But many people were not accepted in their own community, in the villages. And they decided to leave India once again. And in many cases, they went back to the same country, but they have a lot of cases in which they went to another country. People from Jamaica, we have a few who went to Suriname, or people from Suriname went to Fiji, or to Guyana, or to Trinidad. So the database is very important to do research in this field about the movement of the people. What happened with them? And also, who were the people who went back to India, and what happened with them and their descendants? This is very important, and that's why the database, the international database, we have to work very hard on it, because, for instance, for the Caribbean countries, yeah, I'm not very glad to say that Suriname, one of the small islands, have a database, and the other one don't have it. The two largest one, Guyana, with 238,000 indentured laborers. They started already. What I know, very recently they have started now. The government is now willing to work on it, and I hope that they have preserved all the immigration passes so that a reliable base can be made. About Trinidad and Tobago, the National Archivist, I knew her very well, but she is now on. There is a new one. They were very positive about database, but it's not long ago they have started to make the database. So it is very important for all the countries. And we should not forget the French-speaking Caribbean. And in the Indian Ocean, and I'm talking now to Satyendra Pirtam, please check Réunion, that should be also included. And the other smaller countries should be included. And don't forget, very recently, I heard that in how you say, in Australia, Queensland, you had not only immigrants, indentured laborers from the Pacific, but also immigrants and indentured labor migrants from Indonesia to Queensland. Last week, I got a article and I read about this. So that is very interesting also, how many people went there and how much of them went back to their country of origin. So that is about the database. And one important thing, and I'm very glad to tell you that last we had a meeting of the ISC and a conference, and we were able to talk also with the Indian High Commission and with the Minister of Education and so on, that the climate now seems to be positive, that we can get more cooperation. And the most important cooperation and optimistic, why I am personally optimistic, is the fact that the Prime Minister of India has promised since last year that India will give support and will also work themselves on the international database in the sense of, first of one, promoting studies on research and studies and teaching on indentured labor worldwide. That is one. A second is just what we want to do is what we call in our program the locating of ancestral villages from all the districts, the villages from where people went to the foreign countries, that we have to locate them. Where are they now? What is their name? Because I'm telling this because I have experience about it, about people who went to India, tried to find their villages, they couldn't find the village. Although in the records, they have the name of the district and the name of the villages. But in 150 years and 160 years, many things have changed. A district, for instance, Basti, I give always the example of Basti, has been divided in 3 districts. So you have a piece that name is still Basti, but the Basti of the 19th century was much larger. And one is Siddharth Nagar, another one is Sant Kabir Nagar. You cannot find the village who are now in Sant Kabir Nagar or in the other one. That if you go look in the map in Bastida, you will not find it. So that is very important. And for this, we need collaboration between the intentionally the Girmitia scholars, and with that I mean the scholars from the destination countries who are involved, because that is a part of their own history. And second is that now in India, people believe now that migration of indentured labor is also their own history. And Prime Minister Modi has promoted that research has been done, that at universities they will promote study of indentured labor, and that also programs will be offered at different institutes and departments. And I am very glad to say something. I don't know if it is already public available. I got an communication from someone in which the government officially has asked the Indian, how you call it, Scientific Council for Social Sciences. They gave money to this organization, the Indian Council for Social Science Research, that this institute will get money to provide institutes and universities who will do research on this aspect of indentured labor. And that maybe very shortly that will be public available, this information. That means that people can apply for funding to do research. And within the Indentured Labor Route Project, we have to discuss this, whether our own people who are involved in indentured labor studies, and especially regarding this aspect, if they can get also money for research. The research that will be according to the conditions the Indian government has. I think these are very important things. And what I want to say. And my story is not very optimistic because the main problem has been until now the non-enforcement of many Girmitia countries. One big problem, large problem, and that is the reality. वो हकीकत है, it is a reality that Indians in the destination countries are all of them numerical minorities except Mauritius. Mauritius is the only country where Indians are a majority, so they can decide as government what will happen. They have access. They take the decisions about availability of money. What is the priority of the government? So it is very important. It is very important to take this also into account. Why in the other countries where you have Indians, large numbers of Indians, but they are still a minority, even if they are in the government, then still it is not always sure that they can get money about indentured labor studies. And at this moment, presently, the government also, the people, most of the people, the descendants of the slaves, they are more popular in getting attention from the colonial powers about reparations. Yeah, for instance, and the how you say, what happened with the descendants of the slaves, that they have right to reparations, and the colonial powers, former colonial powers, they are only hearing that sound because they are making more sound, more how you say, that the Indians are not making so much trouble as the descendants of the slaves. That is the situation, for instance, in the Dutch country. But we have to deal with this, and we have to try to get involvement of UK, United Kingdom, France, and Netherlands, that they look to this, because that is a part of their colonial past. Their colonial past is not only the slavery, what happened with the descendants of the slave, but for the total former colonies, the people who lived there, and now they are living in the north, in UK, in United States, and Canada, and Netherlands. And I'm happy to say that the Dutch government has given a good example to the other one, because they have in 2023, by at the moment of the how you say, the celebration of 155th anniversary of abolition of slavery, the Dutch government have apologized for the slavery past, and they have promised to give do something about the reparations. But it is still a challenge for us to get the support of the former colonial powers, and also from India, and maybe we have to work also on China, because a lot of Chinese, and that's why I'm glad that Satyendra said what we have said also within the International Scientific Committee. For the time being, we give more priority to the indentured laborers who came from India, but indentured labor is not only Indian indentured labor. You had also indentured labor from the Pacific. You had even indentured labor from Africa, from West Africa. All those aspects will get attention within the indentured labor route project. Then we will be inclusive. It is not only Indian indentured labor. I think for the time being, is that enough? And I'm available. Any question you have from my position in the indentured labor route project, that I think I can help give answers and more insight what you need. And I'm glad with the contribution of both Sechendra. He is very long in this whole thing, and one of the initiators, that is Dr. Chuni himself. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hassan Khan, as always. Ladies and gentlemen, when we opted for this particular topic, it was because it was very important. And of course, next week is a significant date, as Sat would have indicated, a significant date for this particular project. But you've heard from three of the best people to speak about it. At this point in time, I want to open the floor for your questions. So please go ahead, raise your electronic hands, which you will find in the reactions button at the base of your screen. Those of you all who raised questions in the chat, our YouTube audience will not have seen that. And I encourage you, please go ahead, raise your hand so that you can pose your questions directly to the speakers. Kumu Gupta already has a hand up, and I welcome you. Kumu, go ahead, please.
Yeah, hi. I would like to start off by wishing Honorable Ambassador Mukeshwar a happy birthday. And I have three points. One is the project officially part of UNESCO? Because in terms of the financing, I mean, this is a separate point, but in terms of the financing, it could be run like the way the UN is run, where all the member states contribute X amount of percentage towards running it.
Yeah.
So if you could have that, that would be a good thing to do. The second question was about the database from the government of India. How can we access that, or where we can find more information on that? And then the third point was that, in the US, we have something called ancestry.com, and basically that you can put in and find your your generations or your connections, your relations. So this database, maybe you can partner with them or have them as advisor or talk to them and see and come up with this kind of database so that anyone can put from this project countries can put in the information and try to trace their ancestors. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Hassan Khan, would you like to respond?
Yeah. First of all, maybe Satinder can correct that the Indentured Labor Route Project has been approved by the UNESCO in a conference meeting in Paris, October 2014. I think that Mr. Cooney just told us. But with the approval, they said, we don't have the money. So for financial aspects, the organizers, the initiators has to look for funding elsewhere because UNESCO doesn't have the money. You know that during the last few years, the one of the largest donors of UNESCO, they are taking back their hand. They say we don't give money for so many things, not only UNESCO, also for the health sector and other sector, that is the United States. So UNESCO has told us from the beginning. So I don't think they support us. When you have meeting, they send also a representative because they, in their view, this is a very important project that we have their support, but financial aspects, that is outside their power about it. And the other question, I did not understand what you mean with the second question. Hello?
Yeah. I think Ambassador Mukeshwar was saying something about the Indian government, agreeing to have a database project. I'm not sure. So I was just trying to.
Okay. The Indian government, the National Archives, and you have also districts, regional archives, and state archives. The National Archives has the immigration proceedings. That is a lot of material, but they don't have the immigration passes. I have been 4 times to the National Archives. They assured me that they have only the immigration passes for South Africa, for Natal, and for none of the other countries. In the beginning, they had told me that they have. I was looking for Suriname because we are missing a number of data on the immigration people who came from India to Suriname. I thought I can find it at Suriname because in one of the classic works on Suriname was written that for each laborer, there were 3 or 4 copies of the immigration passes. And that one of them was supposed to be kept in India. One for the ship's owner, one was for the British consulate in Suriname, and he was supposed to send it to London. And I have been everywhere, we don't find him. Because that is about the immigration pass. They call it the ship's list, and they have only for South Africa. I've been several times looking for that. So, and yeah, in Suriname, we lost a number of them. I know that in Guyana, very much are missing also, especially the beginning periods. And for later on, not everything is available there because the archives conditions in these countries was previously very bad. So we have not been able to keep the material in a good state, and so they don't have it anymore. They have a lot of them, but they have not all the immigration passes.
Can I just very quickly add something just to clarify what I meant with the first point? Is that yes, UNESCO is not going to give you funding, but if you ran it like UNESCO, the ILRP, and the member countries, all these people who are in the indentured labor route or slavery route, they could contribute some money as a member of the ILRP, so you could get some funding that way.
That we would like, we would have it. But if I tell you that since 2014, or let's say since 2017, when we formally started with the ILRP project, formally with ISC, etc., the government of Mauritius has sent letters to all the countries to appoint a focal point for their country. And what I know, that only India, Malaysia, after long lobby work, Suriname, after 4 years, they have appointed one. France has, I think, an focal point. Other countries doesn't have. They did not appoint a focal point. While one of the conditions for the organization is that in every country you should have a national ILRP committee, and the government should appoint a focal point who will represent that country in the ISC. So if we as countries are not able to do our own matters, and I explained why, because the Indians are in a minority. In most of the countries, they are also in the opposition. And if they are in the government, then they are in a multi-party coalitions. They cannot do everything. And second thing is also that in most of the country, we experience a crisis, economic crisis, long-term crisis. So that these things don't have the priority. Priority has other things than keeping, let's say, writing on history and material on archives and so on.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Hassan Khan. I see Dr. Richard Allen with his hand up. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. As I've been listening to these presentations, I've been ruminating on the current state of indentured labor studies. And some of you may know I recently published, for example, a series of reflections on Hugh Tinker's classic work. And I want to bring us back to what I think is a far more serious problem, and it bears on all of the things that have been discussed here. And that is, first of all, the failure of Indian Ocean studies and people who study indentured labor to properly contextualize what they're doing. This is absolutely crucial because we want to emphasize to people the importance of indentured labor in the development of the modern world. And yet we end up with these tiny, narrowly focused studies that prevent us from being able to articulate to others why indentured labor studies are important.
And
So,
important.
for
Yeah.
example, there are people such as Dale Tomich, right, who've advanced the notion that at least in the Caribbean, there comes into existence a, quote, so-called second slavery following the abolition of British slavery in the British Empire. It's intriguing that these people make absolutely no reference whatsoever to indentured labor, even though obviously you have indentured laborers working in the fields, right, with slaves. So this is indicative, I think, of this serious problem that we are awash in one sense in a sea of parochialism. That means that we need to broaden our research horizons much further than where they are right now. All we ever talk about are laborers.
Yeah.
So it occurs to me, why do we not talk, for example, about the other ancillary developments that are crucial to the workings of the indentured labor system? None of these colonies is able to feed themselves. Indentured laborers, like slaves, have to be fed. And yet the whole question of the provisioning trades is totally missing from any of the discussions in the field. This is extraordinarily important because, again, if you can't feed people, how can you possibly maintain a labor system? Related to this brings us back to the whole question, which has been touched on briefly, but nobody has really dealt with in any significant way, of the extent to which of merchants, be they from India or China or free passengers, are part and parcel of this discussion. Again, there is this disturbing tendency to treat indentured laborers in isolation from the larger contexts in which they operate and which they live. And a final point, and then I'll be quiet, brings us back to the whole question of connectivity. We have all of these basically nationally focused studies. No one ever takes a look, for example, at the ways in which the indentured experience in the Caribbean is linked with that in other Caribbean colonies. In the case of Mauritius, you don't have the development of sugar plantations and the rise of indentured labor in Natal without reference to Mauritius, which not only supplies the technology, but also supplies some of the workers. The same with Mauritius being responsible for ultimately hosting about 2,000 Chinese merchants who are scattered throughout the Western Indian Ocean. So we really do need to sit back and say, what has been done to date so far, splendid. You have to start somewhere. But we've reached the point now, it's 50 years, more than 50 years since Tinker published his study. And in many respects, have not moved on. It's the same old issues, the same old war horses that are being beaten to death. And it brings us back again to this fundamental question. You can ask people to fund you, but you need to be able to justify why what we do is important. And it's only when you can relate it directly to larger global issues that you're going to be able to begin to break through to people. I'm being cranky and cantankerous and curmudgeonly after 50 years in the field, but I'm firmly convinced that we have to do this, because if we don't, we're never going to convince anyone but the devotees of the relevance of what we're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So you raised some very critical questions, and I'm going to ask Satyendra Pirtham to please respond.
Yes. Actually, Richard has been beating on us with that thing for 20 years, and he's right. Just like the ILRP, it cannot be only Indians, it has to be non-Indians. I don't like to use the term non-Indians, but the Chinese, the liberated Africans and others. We have to look at it in its ensemble. I've read recently Richard's article. He'll be in Mauritius, so we'll be over some Blue Marlin. We'll be talking about it very soon. And Gato Piment, so we have to look at it in all its complexity, such as the free passengers. Very often when I do visits in Mauritius, what about what he was hinting about the free passengers? I've estimated 100,000 Indians came as free passengers from 1830 to 1930. Other components of the population, how they interacted with the indentured laborers. And also we have to break through this insularity in Mauritius, which I've tried to do in my own humble way, is looking at other colonies, how it affected Mauritius, looking at the bigger global perspectives, regional and global perspectives beyond the Indian Ocean world, and how Mauritius, one of the things I also say is that the definition of who is an indentured laborers. One thing that we have been looking at recently is even in their own countries, they sign contracts. Some of the local born, what I termed indigenous, they sign contracts. So they can be termed, quote unquote, as indentured workers within their own country. We have to look at it in all of this complexity. The merchant class, the interaction with the ex-slaves, the colonial elite, etc. It is true, we have to look at it in its globality. Only then we'll get a clear picture of, and not only Mauritius, Trinidad. I mean, how do we know what is significant, what's happening in Mauritius, if we don't look at British Guyana? Because when Albert Knott started his experiment, eventually Gladstone was informed of it. When, just to give you a few ideas, when Gordon came to Trinidad, he came to Mauritius and eventually went to Fiji to establish, he played a key role in establishing the indentured labor system there. When we look at Kumar Maharaj Singh came to Mauritius in 1925, and if I'm not mistaken, he also went to Guyana or Trinidad after that. So there are all these connections that we have to look at within the empire, even beyond that. It is only then that we'll be able to understand the globality of what's happening here in Mauritius. That is why in the dossier, why we argued that it was the great experiment. Yes, it was the great experiment, but how do we know it's significant? It is only by looking at its impact elsewhere in the world that we can justify what we are saying. So this is my humble explanation. Thank you, Shanima.
Thank you very much. Dr. Hassan Khan, yes, go ahead, please. You need to unmute your mic.
First of all, I want to welcome Richard Allen. Richard, in 2013 at the conference in Suriname, we agreed that we have to promote comparative studies, and also much earlier. But what is happening still, the idea is there, we would like to do it, but that needs collaboration between scholars from different countries. Or you should get enough funding to go yourself in the different countries, different regions to do research. And we in the poor countries, as descendants of let's say because I descend, but in the poor countries, we don't get the funding to do research that I would like to do research in Mauritius, would like to stay 6 months there or 3 months there and go to Fiji to make the comparisons. It's impossible. The only way, in my view, the best way is to collaborate with each other. But yeah, talking about it, but doing is something else. We are talking in different panel discussions. We have the reports of those things. So it is a problem. But you are on my list. I will call you my friend. We are going to establish an active Caribbean Atlantic chapter of the ILRP. And because you are living in the Atlantic region, although you are doing research more on the Indian Ocean, we will ask you to collaborate with us also, my friend. so that we will be able to do more, how you say, comparative studies. The intention is there. Maybe if we have virtual meetings with each other, we don't have to visit each other, or the physically, that we can discuss these things and find ways, the easiest way to do the comparative research. Yeah, Vijay Tilak is not here, but that is also high priority for her too, that we have to do it.
And Dr. Hassan Khan, maybe you want to share with the audience what is the role of Dr. Vijaya Tilak?
Dr. Vijaya Tilak was the first president of the ISC. She is now retired at the University of Mauritius, but she is still working in the field of slavery studies and indentured labor studies, although she is retired. Just as I am now formally also retired, but I'm go still until, I hope, until my last breath, my last, until my death, I hope to be active in this field, because this is my hobby and my passion, doing research on indentured labor.
And we wish you a long life to continue.
I hope so.
Inshallah. So your comments have led directly into what I think Dr. Mohammed Keshavji is probably going to raise. We welcome you, Dr. Keshavji.
Thank you, Shaniva. It's wonderful to hear what's planned, but I always come to a basic mantra. It's not one day. Let's start with the principle day one. What are we able to do now? There's a cutback globally. I fully agree with Richard Allen. Has anybody sat down and scoped out the whole program of what we have to do? And we looked at literature survey. We can say, yes, we've got to talk to all the countries. They haven't replied. 10 years have passed. We haven't gone too far. One generation, not even one generation, I promise you, 5 years from now, the kids of tomorrow won't even be interested in what we're talking about. We're in the age of AI. If we waste any time, history will give us no discount. I would make a very strong plea. If we are serious, get a program started, get our young children from each country to go to another country and do this work for you. Put a structure in place and start having an exchange system. But if we sit back and say, oh, this is what UNESCO said, and this is what our government said, and then we are in a minority here and we are in the majority here, I promise you 5 years from now, our children will just laugh at what we're doing today. We're in the age of artificial intelligence. Our kids are going to laugh at us. If we want to do something, now is the time. And scope it out in a practical way. Everywhere I go in the diaspora, we hear talk. Nobody follows up. Nobody follows up. It is frustrating. We're a laughing stock. If we are serious, do something and do small things and take small steps. But everywhere I go, everybody wants to do everything. Nobody does anything. I take my hat off to Kumar and Shalima that they've done this for so many years. Everywhere else I hear people want to do things. You come back after 6 months, they say the same thing. Somebody who may have said something they want to do has died by that time. Somebody else comes with something else they want to do. No wonder we don't get respected, because I don't think we have a focus. I'm sorry, I'm being very frank about this, but I have to say what I feel, that we all want to do something, but nobody wants to do it. It's as simple as all that. I think let's take small steps and put them into place. Let's not worry what governments will do for us. Let's not worry who will give us money. If we are serious, let's start small steps and let's start moving. Otherwise, a few years from now, will be irrelevant. I'm sorry for being so frank.
MK, this is quite a surprise. We're so accustomed to you being in your mediator role. It is very, very surprising that you've been, as you say, so frank, but we appreciate your comments. Dr.
Well, I
Mohammed.
am a mediator and I want to always be fair, but I get very tired when we don't move. You know, I did something on Mahatma Gandhi last week. I really worked for days and days to make it happen. It wouldn't happen otherwise. If I waited for the government of India to do it, it wouldn't have happened. If I waited for the British government, it wouldn't have happened. If I waited for South Africa, it wouldn't have happened. All I'm saying is that let's move, let's start doing things. Otherwise, we'll be just known for talking. I'm sorry, I'm being very frank. I'm a diplomat, but today I have to be frank. If we want to be counted as diasporic Indians, we need to get off our back. We need
Noted.
to move.
Noted. Thank you, Dr. Mahabir.
Yes, by our very nature as researchers and scholars and writers, we are individualistic. And by thinking only of ourselves, we wouldn't get far. Thinking how many books we can publish, how many book chapters, how many presentations we can make, and all of that, it wouldn't take us far as a group of people, descendants of indentured immigrants and people who have likewise interests. What we need to do is to get together, not 100 people, not 20, not 10, probably 5 persons need to get together and write proposals to lobby institutions like United Nations. The descendants of slaves are doing tremendously well. They have gotten funding reparation. In Guyana, they have tracked down the owners of these former slave plantations. They have tracked down descendants of slave owners and have lobbied them to get funding and reparation. The funding is important, but we have to be structured. We have to be organized. We have to write. We organize conferences. After the conferences, what happens? Nothing. Not even a resolution. We will publish the proceedings, but where does that take us? We have to lobby. We have to write proposals. This is what the conference should be doing. Thank you.
So let me ask Mr. Chuni here, the Honorable Mukeshwar Chuni, to please respond.
Yes, thank you. It's very enriching. We have so many good observations being made by intellectuals, those who have been working with you for so many years. So I appreciate very much the concerns of everybody. And sincerely, I take good note. I have one proposal. I don't know. I deal mainly with the Indian indentured labor system. So I hope you are aware. Well, most of you have been participating. You know, PBD, Pravasi Bharatiya Divas. Every 2 years, the Indian government has a meeting of the Indian diaspora in one of the metro cities of India. Every 2 years. Previously, it was yearly. Now it is every 2 years since Mr. Modi has come. And there, it's open. It's an open dialogue with the diaspora. We interact with the Indian cream, should I say, the people from the political, social, business, and every other aspects. And I feel we could be instrumental to raise the issue at that conference, PBD, Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, the great Indian diaspora meeting. The opening is done by the Prime Minister and the closing is done by the President of the Republic of India. So you're right, we just talk. We haven't seen anything, not anything. We have progressed, of course, but not enough. Not enough has been done. So I think the Indian government has to be roped in fully. The Indian government has to give us the support. It can even fund, because we are their children. We are their forgotten children outside India. So they have to be reminded that we are part of their system and we need to exist. And how do we exist? We have to exist by our identity. And our identity is Indian. Our roots are Indian. So I feel India has to be roped in. And of course, the other countries from where indentured laborers came, through the diplomatic missions and all, we have to do something. But Mauritius is or has been instrumental in so many things. We have taken the lead, but I feel most of our other countries, as some of our friends pointed out, in some countries, they're just, how do you say, they're not numerous, they are very few, and they have been absorbed. I said it earlier, they have been assimilated in their, the mainstream of those countries' population. So this is what we have to prevent. And being able to prevent means we have to contact, be in contact, connect. How do we connect? I don't know what would be the means and ways. And now in the world, with AI in the world, with AI dictating us, I feel we have to use AI, use other technological facilities, use the population, and as somebody, as I think Richard or Muhammad Keshavji said, we have to involve our children, because then only we can exist. Without that, we won't be able to exist. People won't be able to know us and will, at the end of the day, be nowhere. So how do we do that? It is the concern of everybody, and things have to start from us. As Dr. Mahabir said, even 5 of us can make a starting point. Start, let's go. Let's see how far we can reach. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to make a point here.
Yeah.
Based on what MK has said and based on what you've just said, the important thing about how are we going to keep this thing going is based on the children, the youths. My question though is, how many youths are really interested? In Mauritius, you have an Indian identity that is very strong because the majority of the population are basically of Indian descent. But in several of the other countries where there are minorities, it's very difficult. I see a question being raised from YouTube about Jamaica. Jamaica does have an Indian population, but it's very small in comparison to the African population, for example. And there's a struggle. In several of the countries, the youths are not necessarily interested because at their point in development, they have an interest in simply being accepted in the society in which they live. So formation of the identity is first of all a national identity rather than an ethnic identity. We must pay attention to that. If it is that we are going to extend an invitation to youths all over, it has to be through the education system. But if the education system in terms of history is not really focused on Indian studies, then what is the next step? Look, our program comes on every single Sunday. Thousands of invitations are sent via email and via WhatsApp. But we don't have 1,000 persons in attendance. When it lands in your inbox, what happens next? Does it remain in your inbox or do you also share? And sir, I'm not raising this only to you or any of the other speakers. I'm raising it to all of the participants, obviously. To what extent is the invitation being shared? This is an international platform. Anyone in the world can access conversations here as well as on YouTube. It is placed there freely. How many people are sharing the information? How many persons who are here at this time are inviting others? We will remain a small group of persons unless we share the message. And today's topic, for example, is an extraordinarily important one. We should have had a few hundred persons here to be part of this discussion. Thank you. Let me hand over to Mr. Allen. Let's hear from you again.
Me? Okay. So from my side, we do the sharing at our level, we do the sharing, but there is one issue, the time difference between your settings and ours, because see, it's already midnight in Mauritius, it's 1:45 a.m. So most of the time, most people are sleeping, right? And the time difference is an issue. And the other thing I'd like to point out is that I don't know whether those countries, you mentioned Jamaica, whether they have an Indian consulate there, honorary consul, or consulate, or embassy. The diplomatic channel should also be tapped. You know why? There is a program that the Indian government undertakes for young children, youth. They call it KIP, No India Program. It is meant only for the youth. And they request embassies around the world, wherever the Indian embassies are present, to earmark at least 10, 20, 30, whatever be the number, depending on the country, depending on the population, earmark some youth who can be sent to India, not on their, how to call that, the Indian government supports it financially and otherwise. They go to India for about 15 to 20 days, visit India, and I feel if this exercise is done in most countries where we don't have so many young children, young people who are not interested, but we have children who can develop the interest through the network of the embassy. So if there is an embassy in any of the countries or a consulate, that office can be tapped, and students, young children, can be made to go to India free of cost. Everything is taken care of by the Indian government. In the case of Mauritius, I think every year we have so many students, so many young boys and girls going. The hospitality is there, everything is there. They travel throughout India, they discover India. And the program itself, the name is KIP, No India Program. You can ask the young people to tap, go to the net and find out how they can proceed with this procedure. And you are also very right that until and unless our curriculum don't mention, even in Mauritius, it's not mentioned clearly that indenture is part of our history, Mauritian history. It is there in one of the subjects, I think social studies or whatnot, but a more aggressive approach has to be made by all governments, all curriculum makers, those who prepare curriculum. At least this part of history cannot be forgotten. It has to be introduced in the curriculum, in the school syllabus, for the students to come to know, to be made aware of what is what, and they can, in the future, find an inquisitive way to find out, hey, who are we? Where is our root? How did we happen to come here? So I feel you are very right in proposing that, but please tap the diplomatic channel to find out whether you have an embassy or a consulate or anything related to India in your country. And through that, you can join in the KIP program for the youth. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. The KIP, I'm looking for it on my phone because I know that in Trinidad and Tobago, the message is out. The issue is that the embassy here, the Indian embassy here, does not share it, or perhaps they do, but it is not circulated widely. They do share the KIP, knowledge of the KIP, but I feel they want to restrict the number of applicants, and therefore it does not go out to all schools. If through the Ministry of Education, the KIP poster with all the relevant details about registration and so on is circulated widely, they will have a wider cross-section of persons who are selecting themselves to attend or to participate. The issue for me is, again, from time to time, you will see it pop up in a message here or a message there, or to selected groups. So it has to be not, what am I using? Inclusive or exclusive. It needs to be shared more widely. And throughout the Caribbean, as you rightfully said, in Jamaica, the ambassador there, I think, is one who is shared with Dr. Mahabir. Please confirm if this is correct. I think the Jamaican ambassador is one who is also servicing Grenada and some of the other islands. So, for example, we in Trinidad, we have the ambassador for here because the population is fairly large, as well as in Guyana. But Dr. Hassan Khan, you might be also able to say, I think the Suriname ambassador is also shared with some of the other countries. Is that correct? Please unmute your mic. Dr. Hassan Khan, you're muted.
The ambassador in Suriname, he is under his supervision are a few smaller islands in the Caribbean also. Where it is Caribbean, yeah.
Yeah, but the information.
I know about Antigua, I'm sure, because I've been there also. Yeah. And I think 2 or 3. I don't know whether Barbados has own high commission or not, but otherwise either Trinidad or Suriname supervise Barbados also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. In terms of the time for this particular program, we've circulated a survey and we asked persons what would be the most convenient time. Unfortunately, we received a small number of responses, and out of those, they have no issue with the time that we have right now. So if we had a lot more responses, we would be able to say that the majority would prefer perhaps 11 o'clock on a Sunday or whatever. But we also have to appreciate that Dr. Mahabir, myself, Shakira, Ashley, Navin, the other persons on the ICC team, this is a voluntary effort. No one is really paid to come here on Sunday. We give of our time freely, and we do have studies going on. We have work separately and so on. So we do have to also look at what is convenient for the group of us who host the program every single Sunday. There are persons who come here every single Sunday, irrespective of the time zone. But we do appreciate the fact that for those of you all who, for example, are here at 1 o'clock, or even from India who would like to join at midnight, we really, really thank you all for giving of your time and being here, which is why we put it on YouTube so that it is freely accessible even after the live program. So thank you to those of you all who do indeed share. And we really appreciate those of you who are here very late. Dr. Shadanand is here all the time. It is way past his bedtime, perhaps, in Netherlands. Really, really thank you all. I see Mr. Richard Allen still waiting to say something. Go ahead, please.
I will try to keep my comments brief. I mean, the practical issues that, for example, Moritz raised, we all have to deal with that. We live in a day and age not only when we have to deal with AI, but of course the commitment, even at the institutions of higher level, higher learning, with STEM, right? Who needs the humanities because they seem to be irrelevant and immaterial to this day and age in which we're fixated upon producing worker bees who can have certain skills but can't think their way out of an open-ended paper bag. But I want to come back to another issue that Moritz raised. And yes, it's difficult for people to communicate. It's difficult for people to get together. But what we need to do, part of this process, has to be what I believe it was Frantz Fanon talked about, decolonizing the mind. We need to begin to look outside the normal parameters of what indentured labor is all about. And it's only when we do that, I mean, this is why something like Google Scholar is such a marvelous tool, right? You go on there and you can at least find out what's out there. It's another issue, I agree, to try to get hold of it. But the bottom line is if we do not begin ourselves to change how we think about indentured labor, then we're going to end up in the same old trap where we've been now for the last 50 years. Thank you.
Thank you for re-emphasizing that point. Really appreciate that. Mr. Ken Selene, you've been waiting for quite a while. Go ahead, please. Please unmute your mic. Ken? Go ahead,
Yes,
please.
hello, everyone. I think from my perspective, I feel like, and it might be a typical Indian reaction, but we're oftentimes very hard on ourselves, very critical of ourselves. But I have seen in my lifetime, and I'm 68 years old, progression in this whole issue, of indentureship and the grammatia, there's certainly more awareness. And I refer back to Prime Minister Modi, who quoted, "They left their soil, but not their soul." So, or another way of simply saying it is that you can take the Indian out of India, but you can't take the Indian out of us. So through groups like this, I myself have really learned and gone more in depth, and a number of my colleagues, on awareness of indentureship. And I see it as an economic cycle as well, because it's almost like a trap. In other words, if you can put someone in debt, it's a type of slavery, and it exists still today. There are workers in the Middle East who get these contracts for labor, and the conditions are very terrible under these work conditions, but they're trapped in this economic system of not being able to get out by having to pay back debt. And the indentureship system was based on that. You have to work 5, 7 years just to pay back a passage. So by putting someone in debt, you made them a slave. And us who are the descendants of that have worked progressively to make that awareness and to overall, I think, better ourselves. So in some manner, I think this group is very hard on itself. It really has made some significant achievements, at least from my perspective. So I just wanted to put that out there for everyone to digest.
And we appreciate that, Ken. Thank you very much. Dr. Pravin Kumar, go ahead, please.
Yeah, good morning, Shalima and Dr. Mahabir. I always wake up at about 4:45, so for Australian time, it suits me. And I think when you look at Fiji, they're 2 hours ahead. So in terms of timing, those people who are interested, they can always, make themselves available. And Chandni has been sharing, and so am I. And I think it's just an educative process. But the other thing in regards to, say, the different governments or the countries where we all live, Gimit research was probably very negligent, never happened. And so it's basically in the last few years where the interest of Gimit research in Fiji has increased. And regarding that Knowing India program, it has commenced in Fiji, and Indian High Commission has been doing few things which are very constructive. But I remember, I think, a couple of years back when they sent about 20 people to India for about a 3-week program or whatever, fully funded by the government of India. 99% were, the native ethnic Fijians. There was, I think, only one Indian person who went on the trip. So, I'm not going to say further, but it looked like it was, a very corrupt system of choosing people, and it can no longer happen that way. And in terms of, I think our speaker mentioned about free passengers who went to some of the Gilmit countries. In Fiji, the Gujaratis and the Punjabis went as free passengers, and they have done extremely well. And I come from a town where the most rich Gujaratis who are multimillionaires, but when it comes to them funding any event such as Gimit events or Gimit research, they will never come to the party. I'm trying to organize a 100-year Hawan Yaji in Navua, where the Vancouver Sugar Mill ran, and it is basically the killing fields of Fiji. Dr. Danica Blesley has actually agreed to come from Canada because we're going to launch a book. But in terms of funding, I can't fund $20,000 from my own pocket. And I'm going to do a fundraising event, and hopefully people come on board. But we have so many our own Indo-Fijians who live overseas. And if people give $500 each, you are able to raise $20,000 without any major effort. But it's an educative process. And, last week I was talking to some people in Fiji, some young guys, and they said, I told them the history of how the freehold land came into being and how the Girmites were given land because one of the white plantation owner did not get married, and he gave I think 7,000 acres of land to 50 Girmitia families. He said, I was never told this. I said, ask your father. And then he asked his father. His father didn't even know. His father is my age, about 60 years old. I said, mate, you guys don't know any history. And he said, yeah, that's it. So I said, look, you need to go to some of those ethnic Fijian villages and speak to, some 70, 80-year-old people who may have that oral history. And he said, oh, thanks, uncle, I'll do that. So, it's just that the whole educative process has not happened in some of the Girmit diaspora. And, people get surprised when I mention to them that the South Indians were the first indentured laborers who went from Canada via reunion. And then I met a young girl last week in a shopping center, and I told my daughter, I said, she's got Portuguese blood, and she said, Dad, don't be that critical. I said, if she has a DNA test, it will reveal Portuguese blood in her. So it's a huge educative process, and I spend time doing this, and it's just my hobby, and I've told my kids I'll do this till I die. It's just in my blood. But there's so many things that needs to happen in Fiji for that matter. So I'll leave it there. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all the efforts that you've been making in terms of spreading the news of the indentured laborers and all the important history that is to be done in that regard. I want to ask Dr. Murid Hassan Khan to please respond, make his closing comments now. Thank you.
No, I think we agree with each other. And about the No India program, in the last announcement in Suriname, I saw that it was only for the descendants of the Indians, the OCI persons, for this year. I don't know how it was in the past. I'm talking about No India program for this year. So I don't know. I know that there are technical possibilities that for people who are working for companies or for the government, that they don't look to from which ethnic group you are. That is for all Surinamese in our case. But No India program for this year was only for descendants of Indians. And okay, it is always a challenge to do comparative research. Within the networks I'm working, we agree, everybody, that we have to do comparative research, because we cannot be busy only with what is happening in your own country. We have to look beyond the borders. So, but it is a challenge how to realize that. But that is a challenge. We have to work on that. That's all what I can say. And I do hope that about the database, we can have the collaboration we need between the Girmitia scholars outside India and also scholars from India and institutes, that it will not be monopolized by India alone, because it is history of us and history also of the Indians. And I'm glad that now Indians are discovering their own migration history. In the past, 30 years ago, that was not so. That was not a part of their history. Just as we ourselves, as descendants of indentured laborers, 30 years ago, I was interested only what happened with our ancestors, what happened with us in the destination country. But later on, I discovered, I came to the awareness that the people who we have left behind there in India, they are also part of our history. Our grandparents, great-grandparents were left there, and their family is also part of our history. I think that's very important.
Indeed. The issue is now trying to ensure that all of us find out who they are in those villages.
Yeah. Okay, that is it for the time being.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks so much for all the efforts that you make. I want to invite the Honorable Mukeshwar Chuni again on his birthday to please make his closing comments.
Well,
Go
taken
ahead.
good note of all the proposals, all the suggestions. It's worth having the program, and I have to congratulate your team doing so much of work voluntarily. Is great, and we do hope other countries follow your example. Other persons of the diaspora follow your example, and I'll try to make more people in Mauritius aware of the good work being done. And surely, I'm sure through your YouTube program, they will start and ultimately join us even at the late hour in the programs that you organize. And as far as the proposals made by some of our observers, I take good note, and definitely I'll see how best, because as I said, that event, PBD, is a very grand event. We have so many themes being discussed. We can be part of the panels and all, and we'll have to talk to the Indian government. I'll talk to the Indian government through the High Commission in Mauritius, and to see to it that all the concerns that we have raised are taken care of. Well, the government of India is made aware of, and see whether they have a solution for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All the efforts are necessary, and we are very, very grateful for all that you all have done, especially those of you all who are on the ISC committee. Thank you very, very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let me
Thank
turn
you
you
very
all over now to our chair, Shakira.
Thank you, Shalama. And we want to thank everyone for taking the time to attend and to participate. And I thank Ashley for starting the program. As you said earlier, this public meeting is being hosted by the Indo-Caribbean Cultural Center, supported by Dr. Sibani Roy of England and Dr. Umar Sibalak of Mauritius. And you can feel free to contact the ICC to publish your books. And remember that we are asking you to kindly give us your suggestions. If you give a donation, your name will be placed on our poster and all promotional materials, and you can contact Dr. Kumar Mahabir for details. Our topic next Sunday will be preventing ethnic violence against Indians in the diaspora. So we want to thank our planning team led by Dr. Kumar Mahabir and Shalama Mohammed, our IT consultants, Napin Mangal and Daryl Grantham, and thanks to Daryl again for designing the poster. So please visit, like, and subscribe to all our YouTube channel to see all our past recordings. Good day.
much.
Thank you all for joining and staying so long. Join us every Sunday, different topics, same time.